Imagine your dream plant nursery. For me, it would have to be a picturesque walled garden, set in beautiful countryside, perhaps covering about an acre in total, large enough to feel like a true plant emporium, where avid plant growers and collectors can spend hours getting lost amongst the specimens, but small enough to feel like a well-kept secret amongst real plants people. Needless to say, a good chunk of the nursery would have to be devoted to growing so many incredible plants from all around the world. An inspirational mixture of exotics brand new to cultivation, exciting hybrid plants, and all manner of exquisite forms and selections chosen for their stature, majesty, brilliant little details. Well, today I'm visiting a nursery that sounds very much like that, and a man who is living exactly that nursery dream. Today's video comes from Pan Global Plants. In Frampton-on-Severn, close to Gloucester, just off the M5, Pan Global Plants, if you've not seen it before, this video will really open your eyes. Today, I'll be joined by modern day plant explorer, nurseryman extraordinaire, and self-confessed plant freak, Nick Mesa, for a tour of the beautiful planting at the Pan Global Garden. An exclusive out-of-hours nursery tour. Nick had just closed the gates to the public. This video was filmed the day after a legendary thunderstorm and torrential rain had battered the garden. But if you watch this video, you will see some awe-inspiring exotic plants. You'll see some beautiful planting, some inspirational garden design ideas, and more importantly than that, I think it will really open your eyes to what you can create in your garden if you just look beyond the mainstream options into the whole world of beautiful, rare and exotic plants that are available to us. This video, as you can probably tell, was an exciting one for me to look forward to. I really enjoyed the filming and I hope you enjoy watching this as well. So let's get started. Heading into the Pan Global Garden, accompanied by Nick. Nick, there's an astonishing array of plants here, but tell me what this magnificent beast is right here.
Oh yeah, that's a rheum, a true rhubarb, as it were. Not necessarily an edible one, but that's a rheum called Great Bear. This was raised by a friend of mine named Paul Barney, and he got some commercial seed in, and it didn't quite fit what it was supposed to be.
Right.
The species it's supposed to be. I can't remember the detail on that one now, but it basically flowers at a ridiculous size when it does flower. I mean, it's
I think
a
I saw
big
some
plant
pictures on
anyway.
your Facebook. Yeah, it's huge.
This can get to at least 12 feet tall, I think possibly 14 feet, if it's really happy. This did flower here once.
The critical question, is it banned by DEFRA yet?
It is not.
No. So there we go.
It has gunnery qualities-ish, but it's not banned.
So this will just be a quick walk around the garden here, some of the incredible specimens and beautiful planting, but I just wanted to stop at this one because so many people want to grow gunnery, and obviously now there's a little bit of controversy. There isn't enough time to fully go into that today, but...
Don't get me started.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. If people are wanting an alternative to gunnery in the current climate, we'll say this rheum is a great choice. Fantastic big leaves, and it's herbaceous, isn't it? So it dies down in winter.
It certainly does, yeah.
Do you need to protect it at all? Or?
Absolutely not. Bone hardy.
Excellent. There we go. So lovely, hardy, big leaves. And I think as we walk through your garden, a mixture of shade and sunlight, as we can see now, there's so many rare and unusual plants, but are they tricky to grow? I guess I'm setting you up there for an obvious answer. Does a rare plant mean that it's hard to grow?
Absolutely not. Rare means rare. Yeah. I've been banging on about this for years. Yeah. Rare is
I was
rare.
trying to prompt it out of
tricky
you.
is tricky.
Yes.
And there's a hell of a lot in between. But, you know, it's really important to stress that always.
And what's this lovely tree here?
Oh, with a sort of combossy at the base of
it. Yeah. Well, people get to see everything here, don't they? The good and the bad. But
should clear that up. Yeah. This is a Magnolia Delavei.
That's lovely.
That I put in about 20 odd years ago. Fabulous foliage on Delavei.
It's glorious big leaves, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's lovely. And just to give people a bit of context, this is a 1 acre walled garden, half of which is it roughly half? Is it actually planted up as a garden?
Yeah, roughly half, yeah.
And you started planting about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So as we pass through here, I mean, I can't not talk about this grove of Tetrapanax. We'll see a big one later on, won't we? But
we will.
They are lovely. I mean, what's your thoughts on the whole Rex issue? Do you grow the standard papyrifer, or is it just the Rex that you sell and propagate?
It's just the Rex that I have always grown, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've had other things in pots that I've never actually got into the ground, but things like Empress, etc. But no, it's only ever Rex that I've ever grown. When I started in the game, there was this rather sort of dull-looking Tetrapanax, with a relatively flattish leaf, not as gutted. You know, when these are grown in more sunlight than this.
We'll see some later on, won't we?
These are more, you know, Rex has a good leaf form to it.
Yeah, very deeply divided, like a big claw.
Divided,
Yes,
exactly. But also, you know, it's gutted each time, more so than this old clone that used to go around, which was less deeply lobed and flatter, and was a nice plant, but it was a little bit, frankly, dull compared to Rex. Yeah. And I think if you've got Rex, you don't really need anything else.
I think that's very true. I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of different groups of plants in your garden that we will see here, but I mean, in layman's terms, as I'll sum it up, you generally have the most cool, exciting, exquisite, you know, version of each group of plants, whether that be grasses, perennials, trees, shrubs. And I like to, as we pass forward here into this sunny area, if you could talk about some of your favourites. But just before we do, this beautiful, well, is beautiful the word for this, Nick? Well, lovely nettle relative, isn't it?
I think it's beautiful. I mean, it's got gorgeous foliage. Bomerias are indeed members of the Urticaceae family, the nettle family, but there's no stinging quality to any Bomeria. But I mean, it has a simple beauty.
It definitely does.
You know, that foliage on a Bomeria. We passed some as we were going through there. Some other different ones I found in Japan on trips in the past with my friend Paul.
Feel free to mention any plants I just walked past, you know, in my ignorance.
Well, we were skipping along there. There's a great new Bomeria.
Just over there.
Way over there.
Way over there. I'm not going to see it from here.
It's not fully grown. This is about as big as Bomeria platinifolia gets. This is platinifolia, which has this sort of slightly grey-green quality due to the hairiness. I don't know if you can hear that kind of, you know, it's got hairs on it. But the one over there that I ended up naming Kyushu Rikishi, we found in Kyushu in Japan, southern Japan, and that ends up with a leaf this size by the end of the year.
So and it really visually striking.
Yeah, absolutely. This is almost at full size. Kyushu Rikishi, which comes up a little bit later over in the corner there, is only half grown at the moment and will reach full size in autumn.
Wow. So they are splendid. And as we walk around your garden, obviously we're sort of a bit time restricted today, but I wanted to share some of the plants which sort of go beyond your staple mainstream exotics. Not for the people watching this, just for me really. I'm at that point with my garden where I've got most of the structural plants, the specimens in. Most of the people who watch the videos will know about plants like Tetrapanax, but it's that next level of beautiful planting which I think really you display so well around here. So for people who haven't been to your garden before, this is what greets them when you walk out into the sunlight. And for me, it's very natural looking, isn't it?
Well, I like to, I don't like anything too overly contrived, to be honest. And you could say certain things are really contrived in the British landscape, like the, you know, having Trachycarpus palms in the British landscape. Yes. You could say, God, that's really, you know, doesn't look remotely naturalistic. But I think if you're going to use these things, which I do want to do, I think you need to soften, make them less harsh in the landscape with softer things. And I personally like the contrast, but also I don't know, when you see Trachycarpus in the wild, it'll have a hell of a lot of temperate plants around it. Yes. So why can't we grow temperate plants around it in cultivation?
Precisely. You know? And this is something we'll speak about before we started filming. Typically always the way I spend that much time talking and leave half an hour for the video. But to me, someone with your experience actually travelling around, seeing a lot of these plants in the natural habitats, you don't just have an exotic specimen next to an exotic specimen next to another, you know, similarly bold exotic. Yeah. It's often a lot of these flowering plants, whether they're shrubs, grasses, perennials. It's those that make a landscape. It's those that have the real sort of beauty and tie the whole thing together. And that's what I think a lot of sort of newer tropical gardeners really want their eyes opening to, and where better place to come than this to show them that.
Well, so thank you.
As we pass through, I guess it's how would you describe this landscape? Is it one of those trendy prairie landscapes we hear so much about?
It's not a trendy prairie landscape as such, but, you know, like I was saying earlier on, I wouldn't want to not grow gorgeous grasses and perennials in a naturalistic way. So I've left this area, which could have been filled up with lots of woody stuff or bamboos. You know, I'm a big fan of the woody plant.
We'll see some later on, won't we? That bamboo over there is a bit of a beastie. So, you know, I want to grow all sorts of things. So some areas I want to have more open
I don't want to be always around my sort of shadier areas where everything is tight and you know, you're pushing through the large leaves. I want a little bit of expansion as well as contraction in the design, and this allows me to grow plants that love sunlight as well. You know, not everything is a shade plant.
No, that's very true, and I will be doing some more garden tours this summer, showing a variety of different planting styles and different environments. But in my garden myself, I mean, this grass here, is this the magic Chianocloa rubra?
It is.
This grass is one that people who've watched my 5-pit series will see that I've used. And for me, although it's a grass, it's got that real sort of graceful beauty to it, a lovely brown colour. And I've used this personally with Yucca rostratus to create a lovely sort of colour contrast and difference in the forms. And to me, it was scrolling through your website, seeing a lot of these real striking, unusual varieties. It's well worth spending an hour or so, isn't it, looking through and really finding what...
I would say so.
Of course, you're going to say so. It's well worth having a look through, and if there's a plant group like grasses, for instance, just see what the real special ones that grab you, and you might find something that isn't necessarily an exotic, but pairs so beautifully well with them. Yeah,
absolutely, and you're absolutely right with that. The colour combo you're putting together with the Yucca rostratus.
There's a big one over there, isn't there?
Bluey grey, that bluey grey and this orangey browny green. It's a gorgeous combination. Gorgeous.
Straight out the colour wheel, isn't it? But entirely by coincidence. So as we head round here, I mean, when we talk about umbellifers and plants like that, it's not a plant group I know a huge amount about, but some of yours are really striking, and to me they've got the structure that any exotic would have, really. They look fantastic. Yeah. Which are the ones to go for?
Well, I mean, this is... funnily enough, just a common angelica that I don't know how I even got in here. I didn't put it.
I've literally chosen the one plant that's not a rarity.
No, I mean, it doesn't make any difference because it's still summing up what umbellifers really do.
It's a real sort of sculptural quality. Exactly. I know that's a bit of a cliched phrase, but
even so, it has a sculptural quality. It is doing something in the landscape that most of the plants aren't.
Yeah.
And you know, the ones that are behind us here, they've gone over now.
Yeah, we're a bit after time.
These are humongous hogweeds. I'm not going to say giant hogweeds, because everyone associates giant hogweeds with giant hogweeds, which are Heracleum mantagasianum. This isn't mantagasianum. This isn't illegal to grow. No. This is a Heracleum we found in Central Asia, in Tajikistan. This is Heracleum leymanianum. And if you're worried about the leaf and sap, you know, look, sun, beam down on me. It doesn't do anything to me. I've never heard of it doing anything to anyone else. I have seen it spoken about as a plant that doesn't have phytotoxic sap, and that is my experience. So I've got no problem with growing this beast. No. These were looking incredible a few weeks ago with their beautiful white flowers. Yeah. They do go over, but still, even then, look, the presence of these things is big.
That's more what I was getting at. So when you look across this landscape here, and it is, I think, a landscape, it's just seeing these sculptural forms, whether it be umbellifers or large grasses, or, as we'll see up there, some just amazing flowering agaves. It's when you have that sort of negative space around them, when they stand up, it really brings so much more emphasis, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What's this beautiful sort of, looks like a Miscanthus, doesn't it?
But, well, it does.
Yeah, I know it isn't, but it looks like one, doesn't it?
This is why I like this sanguisorba. So sanguisorbas are big in the world of prairie gardens and if you want to call it that, the new perennial movement. With a lot of sanguisorbas are being used in herbaceous landscapes with grasses, etc., etc. But this one I'm purely using for foliage. I don't care about the flowers. It doesn't hardly flower anyway. This is Sanguisorba aplanata, which I always sell out of every year. I've sold out of it already.
I do like it, and I've got to say, a lot of people watch my videos. One of the things they really request is filler plants, which I know is a bit of a catch-all generic term, but essentially, once you've got a garden, it's covering the soil. It's continuing a colour theme, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's the frontal borders like here, and this fantastic choice for pairing with the other sort of real cool blues you've got in here, and also those russet brown earthy tones.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
I keep seeing weeds everywhere. Bouncing nettles and sticky willy here, and it's. I should have done more weeding before you arrived, George. Never mind.
This isn't a professional production, and I literally called one of your precious specimens brambled into Martin, so you're already offended. It doesn't matter. So I guess really the main reason people want to come to your garden, or exotic plant enthusiasts, this is a spectacular beast of a plant, isn't it?
It is.
This is an agave, and this is ovatifolia, isn't it, I believe?
It is ovatifolia, yeah. One I raised from seed I collected in in the wild in northeast Mexico in, January 2009 I collected that. It's a tiny seed, about 3-4 mil across.
Wow.
And it's now come to the end of its life, basically. It's flowering this year. That flower spike has come up in the last, I don't know, when did it start coming up? Just a few weeks ago, and it's grown,
That is just sensational, isn't it?
sensational, yeah.
I'm very aware that most of my videos just end up with basically me walking around and going, wow, amazing plants, but that is an awe-worthy plant,
It's a bit of a wow plant, yeah.
It is indeed.
Yeah, I think I measured it, was it a couple of years ago? I think I measured it at 2 meters across.
2 meters across. So for all those people with their neat and tidy little succulent raised beds, Matt, good lad, I'm looking at you. These plants get big, don't they?
Yeah,
so
they do.
agaves, if you live somewhere that's relatively sensible for them long term, some of them do get to 2 meters across. So definitely plant with care, plant with the space, because you don't want to be weeding too close to these beauties, do you?
You do not. You do not. And it's a question of thinking about hardiness as well. Ovatifolia is one of the toughest, easiest to grow in Britain, in the British climate. But even then, if you're in a very, very cold spot like I am here, I'm in a valley bottom in rural Gloucestershire, a nasty frost pocket. I have lost ovatifolia here.
Right.
I've had also terrible damage on foliage. So sometimes it really is a good idea just to bite the bullet and make a frame, put a cover over it.
Got you. So here, I mean, I guess it's very easy to become complacent, isn't it, when you're a newer grower? You have a couple of mild winters and assume that's the way it's going to be. But for this beastie here from seed, that's a lot of consecutive winters to keep it alive, isn't it? So things like, even here, raising it up, presumably that's sort of, is it MOT Type 1, some kind of...
It is, Type 1 roadstone, 60 tonnes in that bed there,
60 tonnes.
Dumped on the ground.
So that shows how, even here, in a sunny, walled garden, you still need to put the effort in at the start to give these plants the best chance, don't you?
It's a good idea too, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we're, as I said, we're in a nasty cold frost pocket, which is a bad thing in itself for this kind of plant. But why give them a harder time by putting them into, overly moist soil during the winter? Give them good drainage. That's
very true. And a lot of my videos are from the perspective of someone who lives up north, so generally we get colder winters, but we are quite close to the coast, whereas here, being a bit more central, you can get warmer summers, and winter can also hit a lot harder, can't it? Yeah, it really does depend. It's all about microclimates everywhere in Britain. It's all about microclimates. People come here often and think, oh, you're sort of West Country near the sea. It's like, well, not quite. It's like the very top end of West Country, the very bottom of the Midlands, actually. And we're not by the sea, we're by a river. There we go. And all the cold air is sinking right down here. So you definitely have your own share of battles, don't you? And as we walk around, I mean, here, I've got to talk. I know we just looked at that agave, but this one, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? Absolutely. So it's the same really age. Is exquisite. Same age. Luckily not flowering this year, otherwise all my agaves would be flowering and dying. In fact, do you want to stand next to that? I think let's give this some scale. Yeah. My channel, I often throw out measurements without really backing them up, but just look at this. It is important to have scale with these things. It is indeed. Because I photographed these many times and put them all over Instagram. And you don't realise, I've said they're 2 meters across, but it doesn't really mean anything until you see just how big they really are. It really is huge. And I mean, I know you've got to give them the space. I know you've got to give them that winter protection, give them the right spot. But for something like this, it's phenomenal, isn't it? Absolutely. You're not going to see this every day, are you? So no, you are not. What I'd really recommend to people, if you go to Cornwall, you're on a bit of a garden holiday, it's well worth stopping in here on the way back and actually see some of these plants in person, because it really changes your perspective on how big they get and how they can be planted. So, I mean, looking through here, there's so many beautiful flowers, different foliage plants. Again, huge agaves at the back. Is that a Montana in the middle there? Yeah, this is a group of Montana over there. There is one little ovatifolia to the back. Oh yeah, just tucked in over there. This is my Montana grove. One flowered and died 2 years ago. That was the first to go after 17 years. These are 19 years old. This is November 2004 collection from northeast Mexico. So they're living on borrowed time, essentially, aren't they? Getting ready. That one in the middle, that biggie there, I measured that again a couple of years ago. I think that was 2.1 meters across. Wow. Can we push through and have a look? Well, it hasn't. Yeah, you can just about push through. Let's go through. I think this one is pregnant though. There's an interesting bulging going on at the base of these leaves. I can't see how that can last another year. It's just huge, isn't it? And I've got to say, I first came here about 5 years ago on the way back from Cornwall. In fact, it was almost exactly 5 years ago. And seeing these, it just blew my mind that something so alien-like, they almost look artificial, don't they, in the best way possible. Oh, yeah. it's just mind blowing that you can grow something like this in the UK and it can get to over 2 meters across.
Yeah.
It really is just stunning. But I guess what you're saying earlier, the way that they sit in this landscape really sort of accentuates their otherness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The way you've got them sat in this mixture of, I mean, here, what's these yellow spires there?
This is a digitalis, a foxglove.
I thought it might be, yeah.
An evergreen perennial foxglove. This is digitalis ferruginea.
It looks lovely.
But a lot of ferruginea in cultivation is more ferrugineous, as in it's more rusty brown colour.
Right, okay, yes.
There's a reasonably well-known form of ferruginea called gigantea, which tends to be quite gigantically tall.
Yeah.
But it's very much of that rusty, orangey brown colour. Whereas this is one on the erring on the side of yellow with a little bit of rust in it.
It just sort of completes the sort of landscape, and I'm at that point now with my garden where, you know, I've gone through the phase of going through sites like yours, anything with gigantea at the end of the name, yeah, buying that, having a garden full of huge plants, yeah, great big towering exotics, and now we're at the point where I want a garden that's, to use a phrase, conventionally beautiful, and I want that sort of flowing mixture of plants to create, you know, interest, colour through the seasons. And to me, if you just had loads more succulents down here, yes, it would look spectacular, but it wouldn't change much, would it? Whereas having this sort of just beautiful flowing mixture of perennials, grasses, flowers, it must really change throughout the seasons here.
Absolutely. You've hit on a very good point. It's very important to me to have a fair amount of ephemeral things
Yes.
that come and go. Because although I absolutely adore my agaves, especially these giant beasts of great age, they don't change apart from getting bigger each year. They basically look like a big lump of plastic. And I say that in the nicest way possible.
Yeah, I agree, the nicest way.
So to have the things coming and going around them and softening, because they're brutal things.
Oh yeah,
I liken them to a sort of, I call them the sort of great white shark of the of the plant world.
They've definitely got that look to them, haven't they? Like real fins sticking out of them with those jagged tooth spines.
Beasts, and you don't want to get too close because they will eat you basically. But to soften that brutal form with these softer grasses, perennials, whatever, to me, you know, ticks all the boxes.
And this is something I actually recently re-listened to your interview with Sarah Wilson on the Roots and All podcast. And one of the things you mentioned there was about what really is an exciting garden. And for you, it's that combination of, say, good horticulture, good design, but then exciting plants. And is that what you're trying to capture here? You know, you've maybe got red hot pokers, you've got grasses, but you've chosen the most exquisite variants of each one. And then, I mean, I'm obviously filling you here with loads of sort of positive compliments about your garden, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is what makes an exciting garden for you and what makes an exciting plant?
Oh, what makes an exciting plant? Oh God, that's a big question, isn't it? But I don't know. It's personal choice all the time. But to me, what makes an exciting garden is exactly what you just said. I want botanical interest. That's a key. I want beauty. That's in the eye of the beholder, of course. But for me, beauty, botanical interest. Well, to be honest, and good design, of course. But that's part of the beauty thing. The two main things, it wants to be visually appealing, but not just. The point to be made here is that a lot of people just want beauty. And to me, that's not good enough. I want beauty plus botanical interest.
Yeah, I completely understand. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if I'm growing something, a certain type of plant, I'm going to really research those kind of plants and go for something that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily grow because I suppose because one of the reasons would be because I don't want to be bored by my own garden. Because if I'm growing the same thing as everyone else, it may be a lovely plant, but I can see it just driving down the streets on a daily basis.
In the same way, you know, my garden is called Georgia Jungle Garden, the channel, but my garden is essentially an eclectic mixture of a jungle area, a more tropical area, and then there's at the far end a more Mediterranean area. So I like to explore, although the main theme is exotics running through, is explore different styles of planting. And to me, you can have a garden which is conventionally beautiful, but because the plants themselves aren't interesting, exciting, unusual, it just lacks that sort of wow factor for me. And I get the feeling you're sort of going for the same angle, really. But
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to sort of slag off some standard plants.
You can slag them off if you want.
No,
This is-
no,
this is the right place.
I actually don't want to. Some I definitely would, but there are others.
Yeah.
And the main point I'm saying, I really don't want to slag off conventional plants per se, because many of them are very, very good.
Yeah.
And I do actually really like them
Yeah.
a lot.
It's just context and combinations, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, well, it's. I suppose I'm saying, like I said before, if I could grow something else which is equally good from the same group, doing the same thing visually, but has huge botanical interest, is extremely unusual, hardly ever seen, why would I not go for that?
Yeah.
Rather than the
Definitely.
thing that I can see, as I say, driving down the street every day.
And for me, that's what makes your nursery so special. Again, just filling your big head with compliments here, but it's the way there's so many different groups of plants, but you choose the coolest variants of them. And I think when you're putting a garden together, if you can have a red hot poker, why go to your local garden centre and just choose a red hot poker? Instead, when you look into them and find the biggest ones, the most brightly colourful ones that flower later, ones that look like a lows, to me, that's what makes, just plant hunting, not on your level, but plant hunting as a consumer just so exciting. The fact that there's so much available and the actual levels of availability in your normal garden centres are just so low. There's a world of exciting plants out here, and
absolutely.
I think, anyway, we need to explore more of those, don't we? So
We do.
Let's head around a bit more.
Okay.
What's this grass here that you can see looking beautiful in the evening light?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? This is a Discampsia cispitosa.
Evening light just gone. There we go. That's today's weather for you, isn't
Still
it?
looks nice.
It does indeed. It's a lovely flowing, billowing shape, isn't it?
This is actually, in here are planted a particularly tall, upright form of Discampsia cispitosa that a friend of mine, Paul Barney, collected in Romania, and he named Cabana Buta. Well, what's happened here is they've self-sown, and they've crossed actually with another one that I had over here, different, went in by mistake, and you start getting a really interesting. You come down to here, like this one here with the more yellowy, shorter. You start getting a lovely bit of natural variation. It has a huge natural range. This is one of our native species as well. So,
it is beautiful.
but it does vary hugely across its range.
Yeah.
So,
So I guess for you, when you're out, I know you probably don't do as many travels in recent years, but what makes a plant, when you're actually exploring somewhere, what makes a plant that wow plant that you want to grow it, you want to propagate it, and you want to sell it?
what
makes it a wow plant? Putting you on the spot here.
There's so many different. It's like
this grass here. You obviously see this growing. It might be growing with mixed pines, conifers, shrubs. It might be growing in, I don't know, in a sort of fields, sort of prairie, meadow type scape. What is it? Is it just the beauty of this plant, this sort of intrinsic beauty that you think this is a plant that deserves to be grown in more UK gardens?
Well, I would say so, but I mean mostly. It's going back to what we were saying before. If something's beautiful, it's beautiful. Let's face it.
There we go. Yeah.
But if you're finding something that is looking exactly like all the other Discampsias in cultivation, then why would you particularly say, I need to collect that again, let's get some seed?
Yeah.
I'm not claiming credit for this particular upright clone, but Paul, when he saw it, I think he did say, wow, that's a very, very tall, upright form of Discampsia cispitosa.
So sort of knowledge of the genus, and then finding the ones that
really does help.
Really give you that wow.
I mean, if you go out into the wild with virtually no plant knowledge, it will be very hit and miss.
Yeah.
But
I can understand that.
With a little bit more knowledge, you're going to be able to discern in the field what might be different and interesting.
Got you.
And and that is an important point to make in itself. How much, genetic variation there is in the field, and I'm talking about in the wild, as opposed to what is in cultivation. Often plants in cultivation are represented by a very small amount of genes that might
tissue
exist
cultured
in
or
there.
props.
Even worse with tissue culture and plants that are just done from division. It might be very, very small amount of variability within that one.
So on a simple level, it's like growing your own carrots, we'll say, trying a load of different heritage varieties, finding out just what exquisite different tastes, flavours, colours, texture, sizes are out there, versus going to your supermarket and getting some orange sticks and wondering why they just taste like generic watery rubbish.
It's a good analogy.
it's just exciting plants, and not just choosing rare, unusual plants for the perverse fact that they're rare and hard to get hold of, but choosing them for the beauty and, like you say, the fact that they're not. You can't find these elsewhere. A lot of these.
Well, some. I mean, these are common as muck, to be honest.
Oh yeah. You
can certainly find those. But this fennel that is everywhere. I let it self-sow. It's part of the joy of this garden. That I think is the natural self-sowing everywhere, and then I edit them. But anyway, this fennel is not so obviously different at this stage. But this is a very good form that breathes true, basically from seed. It's a Pete Adolf selection that he named Giant Bronze. I don't think it's particularly giant, but and it's not particularly bronze. But when it comes up, it's funnily enough less bronze than normal bronze fennel. Normal bronze fennel has a bronzy browny colour to it normally. This one, you can't see it now because it's going green as it gets so tall in midsummer. But this one comes up with an incredibly charcoaly purple colour. So in spring, it's obviously much lower as it's emerging, and it's very, very dark, and is a real joy in itself, in a way that it's not a joy now, but it's a very different kind of look.
So it's giant bronze, but it's not giant. It's not actually that bronze. But
exactly. So badly named, Pete. But if you ask me, it's a gorgeous form, but it's not commonly seen, and that's my point. A lot of people grow bronze fennel. It's extremely commonly grown, but this is a very good form. So
in today's video, we're only literally scratching the surface on some of the plants. I'm probably walking past some absolute exquisite beauties from around the globe, but to me, I guess really, if there's one thing I could push across to people watching this, it's that don't be afraid to incorporate other plants into your garden, whatever the style, whether you grow an exotic garden, whether you grow a cottage garden. There's so many different rare and unusual plants that you could incorporate there that can just fit in seamlessly, give it so much magic, but you might not hear of them in your normal garden centres. I think that's where you come in, isn't it, really?
Well, I like to think so, yeah.
There we go. Now, enough talking about fennel, because as fascinating as they are, I think a lot of my viewers, they'll want to see these waggies, the bamboo here, and some of the real specimens that you've got growing here. I mean, let's just have a quick nip through here. Huge waggies. How long have they been in the ground?
They've been in the ground for 21 years.
So 21 years, and I won't guess at the actual height of that, but as you can see, it's a magnificent specimen, and I do actually like the way you've left the old leaves on. I prefer that natural sort of look to them.
Yeah, it's interesting, the variability though between. This is my favourite specimen on site, and it's just the way, it's tiny details in the way the leaves are held by this individual. If we can look at these other ones, they're great, but they're not quite as wonderful as this.
Yeah, this one, they're almost not quite Fortunii size, but they've definitely got a bit more size than, haven't they?
Absolutely.
And it's very striking, whereas the others look more like the waggies that I see in other gardens where they're very tight, very compact, but let's have a walk through here.
The thing about waggies is they're basically just a small leafed Fortunii.
A form, yeah.
That's all they are, really.
Yes.
And of course you get variation. I mean, the smallest ones have tiny little leaves which look bizarre.
They almost look a bit stunted, don't they? Once they get to about a 2 metre trunk, they just look a bit ridiculous. But that is just, that's an exceptional plant, that one. I can see why it's your favourite.
And it still has the quality that you want from a waggy, which is rigid leaves that
very
don't get mashed up in the wind.
Yeah, no, that really is a stunner, that one. You tempted to give it a special name, is that I can't think of one off the top of my head, but
Nick's favourite.
Yes, there we go. Nick's favourite waggy. This has got a lovely leaf. I think I recognise this plant from Jenny and Roger Gresham's garden at Secret Garden of Louth.
Yeah.
What's this one?
This is a veratrum.
That's it.
Now, these were supposed to be veratrum album. That's what I received them as. They're so difficult to tell apart. I got them from a guy who'd mixed up a lot of his veratrums.
Oh dear.
And there are some in here which flower pure white. Not that veratrum album is always white, album meaning white, but it's not always white, funny enough. It can be green or yellowy. I think this could be one of the forms of album, but again, it could be one of the other species, but they're so tricky to tell apart.
It does look lovely. I mean, primarily the reason I grow this is for earlier in spring.
Oh yeah.
These leaves, they almost like a very sort of defined hostas type leaf with a lovely sort of twist to it. But
yeah.
I mean, obviously now it's just going over a bit slightly, isn't it? But
you're way beyond the best foliage.
Yeah.
But yeah, the flowers are pretty striking.
No, they really are stunning. So we've seen a bronze fennel that's not giant or bronze. We've seen a white veratrum that's not white. But looking through here, I mean, I just love the picture that you've created here. You know, whether it's a landscape, whether it's a garden, whatever you want to call the sort of overall look. I guess it's a combination really of not restricting yourself to a certain plant palette, and that's something that I do, and I know a lot of people watching this. It's easy to fall into a trap of thinking, this is my exotic bed. I'm having just, you know, spiky, big leaf things here.
Yeah.
I mean, here, so what's the plant in the middle there?
The strappy leaf.
Yes, the strappy leaf, yeah.
There are, well, as we walk around, you see there's loads of this. This is Crinum Powellii album. There's that word again, album. It's the white-flowered Crinum Powellii.
Is it actually white, that one?
It's pure white.
Oh, wow.
The common Powellii is pink, with these pink lily flowers that come up late summer. But this one's a nicer thing. It's been around a very, very long time. It's reasonably common. I was given clumps of these, I don't know, about 30 odd years ago. And I kept them in pots for a fair old while, and I ended up finally getting them into the garden when I moved here 21 years ago. And they've turned into these vast clumps.
No, it just looks beautiful. I guess on a simplistic level, you're not afraid of repeating plants, you know, big drifts of plants here.
No,
like you said, the
I think that's really important as well.
That's something, again, you talked about on the Roots and All podcast. It's, even though the plants might be exotic, so might be rare, don't just buy one, you know, have multiple ones. And it's not about recreating a wild look, if you like, but it's about treating plants as plants, isn't it? And not just, you know, sculptures or, you know, just individuals.
Yeah, well, it does help them to fit into your landscape, whether your landscape is half an acre or you know, or much smaller. And of course, you can't repeat everything.
No.
A certain number of things repeated really helps you avoid that dolly mixture look where everything is just one.
Yeah, and I would say for people watching this, a lot of them are sort of newer gardeners who enjoy a tropical style. That probably is the best tip I can give them, is don't just literally buy one of everything and, you know, tick them off your imaginary exotic checklist. It's about having multiples, but I mean, some plants like this just beastie yucca rostrata there, even just one of those is enough to really set a tone, isn't it?
Yeah,
it looks absolutely stunning. This euphorbia here, which one's that one?
That's Stygiana. So this is the lower growing form of Stygiana from the Azores. This used to be a great big patch, a great big patch all the way through here, covering the ground. But December 22, that rather nasty cold spell we had nobbled it completely, and has come up from these old stems.
Oh yeah.
And you see it's re-sprouted.
It's a bit of patience, and it has come back.
It has come back.
And this isn't one of the hardier, you know, I grow John Phillips. That one really is tough and hardy, but this one's possibly got bigger leaves, haven't they? Like a larger rosette to me.
Well, to be honest, these are so atypical. At this time of year, they are atypical because they're in the full-on growth stage. When they slow down a bit, they squidge down to be a really gorgeous rosette, and the foliage is thicker texture. This is one of the parents of the hybrid you're talking about, Euphorbia pasteurii.
And you do Frampton fatty, don't you, as well, which is a low-grown one?
That's one well, it's not low-grown. Oh, no. It's broader.
Do you know what? I got one of you, and that's really tall as well. Yeah.
I was going to say, it's not small. I named Frampton fatty because it's this big, sort of fatter base to the plant.
Yes.
Because it had more of this in the way of genes from this, which is naturally a spreading clone of, or form, shall we say, not necessarily a clone, a form of Stygiana. So Stygiana cross mellifera gives you pasteurii, the clone. Got you, not the clone, the hybrid that you are talking about. So Frampton fatty and John Phillips are both clones of pasteurii, the hybrid.
There we go. There's the knowledge. So I appreciate, obviously, today we're a little bit short on time, and like I said, there's hundreds of plants we'll go into here, but I think we just need to give people an idea of what lays the other side of these palms. I mean, these Waggies they are exceptional, aren't they? I think Waggies are actually, if you want a palm in UK gardens, it's got to be this one, hasn't it? Just look how good they look. So.
Yeah. I mean, well, you obviously for UK gardens you need hardiness as well. So, I mean, you could say you grow some Fortunias, but unless you've got a really sheltered garden, where Fortunias can look pretty amazing with their, very large leaves, they so often get mashed up.
Yeah,
and
whereas these are just pristine at the top, aren't they? Absolutely pristine. And on the subject of pristine and fresh new growth, I think we need to see this bamboo round here. This is what people have been wanting to see. I mean, on the way, huge Miscanthus there. That's growing up rapidly. A wall of Tetrapanax we're not even going to touch on today.
This is a gorgeous form of Miscanthus called Rosie.
Oh, wow.
R-O-S-I. I've had that in the ground for a few years now, but the autumn colour on this is gorgeous.
No, that's
I mean, the
fantastic.
form of it is gorgeous, and it does flower, but at decent height. So people often grow giganteus and things
Yeah.
like that, which I've got over there. But Rosie has this fabulous autumn colour, really rich oranges and reds.
So again, there, rather than just growing giganteus because it's the the token
bigger,
cool
yeah.
sort of big grass.
Well, if you
There's
come
so
around
much
here,
more.
George, you'll see giganteus in the background.
Yes, so we can see it's head and shoulders above, isn't it?
But what you're also getting here was what you were kind of touching on just now.
Yeah.
By what you were saying is repetition.
Yeah, of
But
forms.
repetition of forms, but not the same thing.
Yeah.
So they have different qualities. That one's taller, this one's shorter. This one has really good autumn colour. That one has not such good autumn colour. But at this stage, they're tying the planting, the design together visually.
I can see that, yeah. So for a smaller garden, they're both visually big grasses. So
Yes.
you might as well choose one that performs in autumn as well to get that extra season of interest out of it, haven't you?
Yeah.
It looks beautiful moving in the light there. And as we head round, because I'm conscious of your time, do appreciate your help with this video. But I mean,
problem.
huge Tetrapanax there, a real great big suckering clump up there.
Yeah, that's been in for a long time.
That is a big old plant, isn't it, that one? So,
Yeah, about, I think 19 years for that one, probably.
so if you leave Tetrapanax, this is the size that they get to, isn't it?
This would be wider than this, actually.
Oh, right.
The suckers would have gone over there somewhere,
wow.
but we stop it here because there's other things growing here.
No, that really is a bit of an eye-opener, isn't it?
On our way round, again, I'm going to stop you here. This is quite interesting. Not only is this a gorgeous foliage plant, which is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. This gets, I can't believe it's this big already. We're only in July.
There's been a lot of moisture this year, hasn't there?
It's true. This is going to be a giant this year. This is a dahlia, can you believe?
Do you know what, I thought it's got a dahlia leaf, but it looks a bit more
good.
glossy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's glossy. It's
not imperialis, but
It's not imperialis. No. This
That'd
is
be where my guess would end, really.
Well,
So now you step in now with your wealth of knowledge.
this is one I found in Mexico in 2005. And at the time, we didn't know what it was at all. And that was for a very good reason, because it turned out to be a new species that had never been seen or described before. So this has been named in more recent years Dahlia tamaulipana from the place we found it, Tamaulipas State in Mexico.
There
but
we
this
go.
is very late flowering, flowers just a bit before imperialis would, so December.
So you might get it before the frosts in colder areas.
I have flowered this here on more than one occasion, but it can get nobbled by frost.
But it's worth the risk when it looks as beautiful as this, isn't
Well,
it?
exactly. I mean, I just grow it as a foliage plant anyway.
I mean, but being sort of hypercritical, a lot of dahlias, the flowers are fantastic, but the foliage can look a bit, we'll say potato-like if we're being very unkind. But
a little bit dull, yeah.
this one, it just absolutely fits in with the loquat there. Any of these beautiful exotic climbers, it just works, doesn't it? I think it's that extra sort of glossiness and the overall sort of volume and size.
Yeah, and also if you think
Beautiful.
about how compound the leaf is, how many divisions there are in these leaves. So it's a very pretty leaf.
So there's so many plants here that could be, the next big thing of tropical style gardening. And I know we spoke about pink China colocasia, Tetrapanax, Schefflera. You sell all those. You sell the gingers, all the, we'll say the cool trendy plants. But once you get into different genuses, different groups of plants, there's just so many beautiful variants, isn't there? With striking, glossy, brightly coloured, just beautiful foliage.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
lovely.
know how many people know.
Is it Bergenia? This?
Yeah, but it's a lot of people say Bergenia. Ooh, Bergenia. Ugh.
Yeah.
but Bergenia ciliata with these ciliate hairs on the leaves is a gorgeous thing.
No, that really is beautiful.
What a great ground cover.
Again, it's a plant you can buy at any garden centre, the normal Bergenias that you see, and they often look dishevelled, yellowing. I know they can survive anything, but they just cling on, don't they? Whereas this plant just looks absolutely beautiful.
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be without ciliata. I'd grow about 1, 2, 3, 4 different forms of ciliata in the garden, all slightly different. But the great thing about ciliata, despite it being this gorgeous this foliage plant in summer, is it's properly deciduous. So it's not going to ever have that sort of
that rough looking. You don't need to be polite on this.
They can look a bit rough sometimes.
Yes.
This, you will lose all the leaves, and they'll come out fresh. And
like
and
a hoster,
flowers,
essentially.
Yeah, exactly. The flowers, instead of being some Bergenias that we know and hate, are this horrible, insipid sort of
deeply unpleasant pink.
Yeah, exactly. That cold bluey pink.
Yeah.
This has apple blossom sort of style, white with a reddy pink tinge. So very, very tasteful, nice flower colour.
It's very lovely, but to look at a plant which doesn't fit either the tasteful or nice descriptions, I appreciate you obviously running out of time today, but we have to make time for this fantastic beast of a plant. Which bamboo is this? I know the answer, but you introduce this fantastic beauty.
This is Phyllostachys vivax Aureocaulis, which is one of the biggest growing bamboos you can possibly grow in the UK.
It really is sensational.
This one has been in here for the entire time I've been here, 21 years, coming up in a month or two.
And Phyllostachys or Phyllostachys, depending on how you would pronounce it, do they spread?
They do spread.
Yes.
Potentially.
This is something we'll talk about earlier, isn't it? Some people say that they don't. Some people have individual plants that maybe stay as a clump, but ultimately they all have the potential to spread. And
that's the right way of putting it. They have the potential to spread. They don't necessarily. We could look at another one. We have 5 seconds on the way out, but there's a bambusoides down there, which is nowhere near as happy in our climate as vivax is, and has always remained a clump. And I haven't put a rhizome barrier around it. It's only just starting after 21 years. It's only just starting to move now. Wow. Whereas this one sent out a runner underground in its first year, about 8 feet long.
Oh, right. So that gives you a good sign, doesn't it?
So I did put a rhizome barrier around this to stop it moving because I knew it was a runner.
Yeah.
But I'd been a bit,
yes.
You know,
easy done. Yes.
I didn't. I should have put leaving it coming out of the ground by this much, because what happens is you get this heave over the years as the rhizome builds up and all the detritus builds up, and it's just squashed my little bit of rhizome barrier that I left out of the surface a long time ago, and it has now escaped. But to be honest, I'm not even particularly worried about that, because I'm going to keep an eye on it and I'm going to remove it where I want to remove it. Like
we were saying earlier, it's choosing the correct bamboo for your garden, it's planting it correctly in the right spot, and then it's the maintenance, isn't it? But absolutely. I mean, looking through there, if you want to just, if we can do this without it being an appropriate gesture.
Can you see that? That's the biggie one this year.
Just look at the size of that. That is ridiculous. And
that's the biggest I've ever seen on this. And that's due to the rain we've had.
That is phenomenal.
Over this last year, I suppose.
That really is just amazing. And I've got a few of these. Mine are just sizing up, so I'm somewhere at that sort of stage at the minute. Just a little tiddler, but to me, in terms of exotic plants, it doesn't get much better than this. Just seeing something so unreal in the UK, it really is amazing.
Absolutely.
No, that really is striking. So as we head out, let's see that other bamboo, and I appreciate you staying behind a little bit later today.
No problem.
To show us around, but I mean, here, there's just plants galore. Beautiful acacia there, real striking purple. There's all manner of just exquisite trees from around the world. Got huge leaves. Tunnel over there, packed full of gingers and other flowers. I mean, this video could be about 2 days long, but you're sort of wearing your time.
You can always come back.
Well, there we go, just might. I mean, so many plants here. Look at that. That is a lovely bamboo.
So this is a subtly variegated form of Phyllostachys bambusoides. Normally it would be green, wild green, but this one has the yellow sulcus alternating up the culms. But again, this one is only just starting to move out, you see. It was a tight clump for
but given that context,
20 years.
This is a plant which hasn't spread much, and just look how much real estate that's taking up. And looking back at that other vivax or vivax over there, you can probably get an idea of the height of it. You can see that new growth, the new culms just pushing through up there. It really is making its mark on the landscape, isn't it, that one?
It certainly is.
And what a landscape. I mean, Nick, thank you very much for your time today. I could spend literally hours here, and there's so many plants. I mean, Scheffleras, Miscanthus over there. There's a whole array of shade-loving exotics over that side there. What I would say to people is follow your Facebook page, because I love your sort of photos, your plant highlights through the year. And also check out your website. Take the time to scroll through the sections, different shrubs, different trees. There's so many exquisite beauties there. And Nick, thank you for taking the time to show us them today.
Absolute pleasure.
So there we go, an introduction to panglobal plants, what is probably my favourite nursery, and I'm sure now you can see why. I really was like a kid in a sweet shop, and we could have literally spent hours talking about so many plants just in that little journey through the garden. It really is a place I would absolutely recommend you visit. So you can go through the herbaceous perennials, the grasses, the trees, the shrubs. You'll find lots of exotics there and lots of plants you might not have heard of, but absolutely, as you'll agree now, belong in your garden. I'll leave links in the description below to the Panglobal Facebook page, Instagram, and the website as well. Unlike a lot of the other places I've visited, Panglobal do mail order, so if you really want to get a few boxes of botanical rarities delivered to you, I can honestly recommend the service 10 out of 10. But I would also really recommend taking the time to travel and visit Panglobal. Whether stopping over halfway back from Cornwall or Torquay like we did, or making a special trip over, I honestly would recommend going. Not just to see and take in the beautiful planting, the breathtaking garden, but just to see the diverse and huge range of different plants from all around the world they've got to offer. Often when you're going online, a picture, a description, a name, it might not instantly grab you. But when you have a look around the sales benches there, you see some of those exquisite leaves, unusual foliage, just ridiculously sized flowers, you will know that that plant is going back with you. So I'd honestly recommend checking it out. Normally I would end the video at this point by saying I hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, and some ridiculous bye or salute or something. But this time around, if I may, I wanted to share with you something that I really picked up on and felt during this video. And this is something that I've been trying to touch on in my garden here. And that is, when you're walking around the garden doing a video, a lot of the time I'm concentrating on the filming itself, I'm watching my audio levels, I'm watching where I'm pointing the camera, I'm trying to hold up a half decent conversation. I'm actually really trying to focus on the flow of the video, moving from area to area, and also just the basics of adjusting exposure. I do have a little bit of brain capacity left over to focus on some issues, but what really struck me during this visit and this filming was that the garden at Panglobal absolutely feels alive. To me, that word just sums up the garden there. I think it's so easy when you grow exotic plants or really any kind of gardening. It's just to see a garden as a series of plants, when the reality is it's a whole. But creating that whole relies on planting a lot of different plants. It relies on creating a style and an atmosphere. And to me, that's what Panglobal really has down. And when I say alive, I mean in a few different senses really. Alive in that, well, firstly, the whole place was buzzing with wildlife, insects everywhere. I was only there for a few hours and I spent about an hour and a half talking to Nick about gonorrhea, the RHS and various other things that we might say for a future video. I spent about half an hour, 40 minutes filming little clips, and the amount of pollinators, bees, enjoying the exotic plants, the rare plants, really was staggering. So yes, there's definitely something to be said about introducing and planting more native plants into our gardens, but I also think in these times of changing climate patterns and really tough, harsh conditions during summer and winter, we need resilient plants that can cope with those and also provide nectar, resources at different times of the year to help our struggling wildlife. So I really think this garden is a true testament to the fact that plants are good for wildlife. Not just natives, not just exotics, but a garden that has real biodiversity and a garden that has interest from all around the globe and all through the seasons. Secondly, it's alive through the year. It can be easy when you create a garden with, say, exotic plants like behind me, to have Trachycarpus, to have the gonorrhea. Yes, things do change through the year, but a lot of the year they are relatively static. And as Nick pointed out, he loves having a garden full of ephemeral plants. And for me, it really is a key factor in my garden, something I've tried to introduce over the last few years. I like the idea of having something to look at in every single month, every single week if possible. Sometimes that's a newly emerging leaf. Sometimes it's a tree fern bursting free of huge croziers. Other times it can be an exquisite flower I've been waiting months for. There's always going to be something to look forward to in a garden. And as Nick says, he doesn't want his garden to be boring. So for me, a garden has to be full of exciting plants, but it has to be exciting all the way through the year. And I think that's a really key point. And thirdly, life in your garden isn't just what it does for the wildlife. It's not just a case of what it does for you through the seasons. Life is the way that a garden feels, the way that a garden moves, the way that a garden sounds. These are all things that create this atmosphere we talk about. Having grasses, the flowing perennials, that's what creates life and movement in a garden. And for me, as I carry on with my viper area in particular, I really want to introduce more life, more of the plants or insects, more of the plants that bring interest throughout the seasons, not just summer, and also more plants plants that bring life and movement, sound to the garden. That's what it's about. And really, I think for any of these three factors, that life can only be improved, your garden can only be made better with the introduction of some rare and spectacular plants from all around the world. So I'd just like to end by saying thank you very much for watching, putting up with me ramble, and I really would implore you, support these specialist plant nurseries, support the specialist plant breeders. There's a wealth of incredible plant knowledge out there, there's a wealth of beautiful plants, and they can make all our gardens better. If you want to see another beautiful garden planted up with some of the incredible exotics we've seen today, then check out my videos at the Secret Garden of Louth. I'll put a link to the series in the description below, and I will be visiting later this year. And I'd also highly recommend checking out my recent video looking at the 50 Shades of Green garden. If you want to see a conventionally beautiful garden made up of entirely unusual plants, I think you'll love that one as well. Definitely check those two out as a start. But in my library, I've got all kinds of videos looking at exciting gardens and unusual planting. So thanks for watching. This time I will see you next time. See you later.